My name's Bill Gilbert. I'm one of NNJR's chief instructors, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's Zoom classroom about how to learn a new track, but it's really focused on PittRace. But we are going to talk specifically about strategies for learning any track, and then we're going to dive in, to the details on PittRace. So for the hard questions, Tom Calabro, track chair, and Craig Mahan, registrar, are on as well. So if I have hard questions, I'll refer to them. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm gonna get us started here. So let me just do this and do a couple of screen adjustments. Zoom always rearranges my screen when I share the PowerPoint. I wish it wouldn't do that, but there we go. Okay, so we'll dive into how to learn a new track. Normal disclaimer.
I can't hear you.
If you hear something tonight and try it and it causes you a problem, it's your fault. We're doing our best to offer advice here, but there are no guarantees in this business, as all of you know. So, so that's the disclaimer part. If I can get this to work. So we'll talk about how to learn a new track. We'll take just a few minutes to do that. We'll talk about what you can do in advance, and I really do want to stress what to do in advance tonight for reasons that will become evident, I hope. Some prerequisites when you get to the track, the priority and sequence to focus on at the track, some practical ideas, and many of you have heard me talk about deliberate practice. I'm going to be a broken record on that, but it's going to give you some good strategies for how to approach learning the track once you're there. And then we'll dive into turn by turn. Okay, so getting ready for an event, the first step is just a track map. If you don't know what the shape of the track is and what the corner numbers are, then whatever I tell you or anyone else who knows a lot more about PittRace than I do tells you won't help you very much. If you don't know that turns 1 and 2 are somewhat connected, or that 5 and 6 are a big 180 sweeping turn, then forget it. So I hope everybody's looked at the track map. If you haven't, please do. One caveat: the track map that's on the website, which is from Speed Secrets, Ross Bentley, actually has 5 and 6 labeled slightly wrong. We'll talk about that when we get to it, but it's not a big deal. But the numbers aren't in quite the right place, so we'll talk about that. Next step is, and again, we're talking about things you can do in advance and should do in advance, is visualization, mental programming. Just close your eyes and drive, a lap. And then open your eyes and draw the map. And I'll give you another technique to think about that in a minute. If there is turn-by-turn information, and there is or will be, then obviously you want to study that. And one thing I like to do, both from videos and from turn-by-turns, is take my track map and make my own notes on the map of anything I want to note: uphill, downhill, late apex, early apex, whatever it happens to be. Video can help you in the sequence to help you, see the shape of the track, where it's going, and get you as familiar with as many reference points as possible. If you are fortunate enough to have a simulator, great. I'm told, though, iRacing doesn't have PittRace on it, so I'm not sure how much help that gives us for PittRace. So here's another way to think about it from a different source, and I just recently ran across this, thought I'd share it. It starts with finding a video, and I'm going to give you 2 that you can look at, after this event, after tonight. I'll give you links to 2 of them. And find a video and then make your own guide. So watch the video, just 1 lap, and the videos I'm going to point you at have 2 laps, but pick a lap, watch it at half speed, and then draw a sketch, like you see the sample that's here. And then, once you've kind of learned it that way, sit and watch the video at full speed and sit in a comfortable chair and move your feet around to brake and use the gas pedal with the video, and do that enough until you can match the video. I haven't had time to try this for PittRace, but it feels to me like it'd be an interesting and potentially useful technique, because you're kind of getting a head start on the muscle memory that you're going to need when you're actually on the track. You can obviously use your hands at the same time as well. This particular author emphasized using the feet to get used to the braking points and acceleration and so on. But and by the way, anyone that sends me an email after tonight, I will send you copies of the slides and anything else I refer to. I will get them up on the website shortly. I finished this up half an hour ago, so I haven't had time to get any of it up yet. But I will be happy to share the slides with everyone. So when you do get to the track, there's some really important things to program your head with. And this comes from Dennis Mascio. Many of you listened to Dennis last December when he spoke on Zoom. But for those of you that don't know him, he was the chief instructor for many, many years at Bertel Roos, now the chief instructor at Monticello. And I heard him talk through these kinds of techniques the first time I went to Palmer, and almost nobody had driven at Palmer. So this is his advice: be open-minded. You're going to hear a lot of tips and advice and stuff, but trust yourself. Assess your own risk level. And most importantly, be methodical about how you approach it. Have patience. Dennis emphasized when he talked to us about how analytic it is to drive on the track. Got to be analytic, got to be methodical. Go slow. Build up that visual photo, that mental vision, Ross Bentley calls it. You're trying to get a mental picture in your head. PittRace has boatloads of blind turns, uphill, downhill. You need the mental vision. You can't trust your eye vision because you can't see a lot of the track when you need to see it. So you've got to develop that mental vision and get that right photo in your head. Again, avoid the misinformation. Be aware of any gurus, including me. I'm no guru on PittRace or anything else. So just, don't trust yourself. Now, the basics, Skip Barber basics on any track, any corner, any time. What are the priorities? You all, I think, know this. We want to focus first on exit speed. In other words, getting out of the corner safely and correctly. Only once we figure that out can we focus on entry speed. And last and least, we focus on braking or braking later. So these are the priorities, and that should always be your sequence as you're focused. Come on. So here's some practical ideas. Use whichever ones you choose or not. You can think about categorizing corners, based on corners that we're already familiar with. If you think of a kind of turn and go corner like turn 1 at Watkins Glen, well, there aren't a lot of those at PittRace, but maybe turn 14 is somewhat like that. Fast corners where we do very light braking, no trail braking. Turn 16 at PittRace is definitely like that. Turn 11 may be a little bit like that. It's a fast corner. We're not going to do much trail braking at all. On the other hand, long corners where there's lots of trail braking, and there's some of those here, the turn 5-6 complex, the turn 17-18 complex. I will point out here, though, that those big long corners, which on the surface might look a touch like Big Bend at Lime Rock, they're not. The Big Bend at Lime Rock turn is a decreasing radius 180. Turn 1 is faster than turn 2 at Lime Rock. These complexes are the reverse. The first corner 5 is slower than turn 6. 17 is slower than 18. So these are slow in, fast out corners. And then we have compromise corners or connected corners. If you've driven VIR, you know what that's like. Here we got a boatload of those to deal with. Turns 7 through 10 or 11, depending on how you want to look at it. Turns 12 through 14 are connected. So you got to realize that we're not optimizing every corner. We're optimizing the sequence and the exit. Then we want to estimate reference points. On any given corner, we want to start with a single arc, a very late apex, which we're going to learn is a particularly good strategy here. And then only after that do you start dealing with things like elevation and camber, which are much more sophisticated aspects of what we want to learn. And of course, this is an iterative process. So I'm not going to spend any time tonight on deliberate practice, but learning the track is obviously the first point. Reference points, surface, safety features, runoffs, that kind of stuff. Learning the car, where are we getting on the brakes, where and how we're releasing the brakes, same for gas and steering. Traffic, what are the passing zones, what would happen if I hit oil, that kind of stuff. And then the sensory input sessions, what can my eyes tell me, seat of the pants, and hearing. You'll remember that last year I put together sensory input worksheets for Watkins Glen and some other tracks. There's a worksheet on the website that gives you the questions to ask yourself when you come in from a session, or better yet, look at them before you go out and then come back in and make notes on a track map. Again, send me an email. I'll send you the link to the cheat sheet. You're going to want to print out a bunch of track maps and have them to make your notes on. I can't emphasize enough how helpful this is, even on a track that but on a track you're trying to learn. I would almost say this is essential, or you're not going to learn the track very fast at all. So, in summary, this is a learning challenge. Prepare ahead of time. Start by admitting you don't know it all. Don't assume corners are like a corner you've already seen, because while they may have similarities, no two corners are the same. Really, really important. Get that mental picture, get that mental photo of what the track is like, so that, with all these blind corners and such, we have an idea what to expect. The priority list, corner exit, corner entry, and braking. And then, as you make adjustments, make the adjustment, observe the effect, write down what you learned, and keep iterating. And obviously, we all want to keep it safe. The good news is PittRace has lots of runoff. The bad news is there's lots of places where it's easy to end up in the runoff, and we just assume that not happen. So those techniques apply to any track. So let me pause here in case there's any particular questions on any of that before we talk about PittRace specifically. Okay. And Dyke points out in the chat that the track map is on the website if you don't have it.
So which website specifically is it the NNJR website or PittRace? Sorry.
No, it's the NNJR-PCA.com. Go to driver's ed. There's a track maps section. Every track we go to, there. Ross Bentley was kind enough to let us share his speed secrets track maps. And the reason we use those is they're designed to take notes, and they're great for that. In fact, you probably can't see it, but here is one of several that I've marked up already as I've been trying to, figure out, how PittRace works. But yes, on the NNJR side.
Hey, Bill, are there any simulators outside of iRacing that will have PittRace on it? Not simulators, racing games and so forth.
James, I don't know is the short answer. I'm not familiar enough with most of those to really know. I was told that iRacing doesn't have it.
It does not have it. I've already checked.
Okay, yeah, well, and Doug Holcomb told me the same thing because he was very disappointed to find out he couldn't use his simulator. But no, I don't know the answer, James. Okay. Other questions, comments here?
Yeah, Bill, this doesn't seem to be a high-speed track, right?
Well, no, in the sense of it doesn't have any, back straights like VIR does or something like that. But there are some pretty fast sections, and but it is a mixed track. It has some twisties to it, although the twisties don't look super slow to me. I haven't driven the track. I mean, I should have said that at the beginning. I'm reporting based on what I've been able to learn from talking to people that have driven the track and some of the videos, instructional videos that are out there. But Bill, it is not a super fast track, but you're going to see when I do the turn by turn, there's the back part of the track before the, from turns 14 up to 17. Mm-hmm. Depending on how tight you want to cinch them up, it's pretty fast.
Right. They're just kinks.
Hey, Bill, this is Craig. I have to tease you. If you're driving, is any track a high-speed track?
Well,
I didn't laugh at that. Hey, Bill, I didn't laugh at that.
I gotta
I
get
have
you one.
I have a question. I don't see on the website where you have the track map. Can you help us with that?
I found it. I could put it in the chat, guys. I finally found the PDF myself.
Great, thank you.
Hopefully you can find it there. Give me just 1 second to make an adjustment here. For some reason, my Zoom. It's not working, but relative to some other tracks, well, let me put it this way. I'm not sure that how to compare this track to others. The closest I've heard some people describe is imagine Mid-Ohio, but with a really nice track surface. Okay. So I think it's probably more akin to Mid-Ohio than any of the other tracks that we run based on, secondhand information that I've gotten. Okay.
Hey, Bill, I was I don't know if you guys have looked at this or saw this. I was just looking around before this meeting on YouTube, and there's a Pittsburgh International Race Complex instructional lap. There's the first two, if you put in PittRace track videos, the first two that I see, one is training laps, PittRace full track. The guy's driving a Porsche and he's explaining in 2 laps where the braking zones is. And
yep.
I don't know if you've seen those.
Bob, you're one step ahead of me, Bob. So I'm going to actually probably show one of those things. But if you go to look, if you find that video, what you're going to discover is that the video and the audio are totally out of sync.
Yeah.
And so I actually downloaded it and adjusted the audio to get it close to, but they must have been recorded on separate laps because they're just simply not consistent. So anyway, but yes, there are videos out there. In fact, to that point, let me just jump ahead. Track map for notes, print a bunch out. I'll come back to that for a second. put this on the website, but anybody that sends me an email, I'll send you the 2 links. There's 2 instructional videos I've found that I think you will find useful. The first one was done in 2017. I think it's in a BMW or something like that. But it's 2 laps, instructional laps. And the second one, like Bob just said, are 2 instructional laps in a Porsche. And I'll show you at least one of those laps in a moment. But so there are videos out there that are worth looking at. Now, I will point out, I've watched both videos several times. They are pretty consistent, but they're not totally consistent. Not even sure the cones are in exactly the same place in both cases. So now part of that is they're 2 years apart, or 2+ years apart in when they were done. So perhaps the track is adjusted slightly. I don't know, but there are videos that are useful. And so rather than talk about it, let me play a lap or so of the one that Bob was just mentioning, and then we'll talk about the track itself.
Who's SGM?
Okay, what's happening? Hold on, guys. Sorry, my mistake. All right, give me a second. My Zoom controls have disappeared, and and I need to fix this.
Keep left of the line or right.
Let me
Don't
back
cross
this
it.
up for a second. All right. Now let me know if you can hear the sound here.
We're on pit road at PittRace. We're going to give you an introductory lap to the track for those of you who have not been here before. For the regulars, this will simply be a review of the braking zones and apexes. As we approach pit out, observe the blend line. Keep left of the line or right. Don't cross it. Braking zone for 3. Late apex, nice and smooth. Stay out for 4. Late for 4. That's it. Late. Back on the throttle. Headed to 5. Set yourself up in the middle. Hard brake. Nice and tight. 1 turn of the wheel. Don't move it. Don't move it. Approaching turn 7. Late brake. Late apex. Eyes left for turn 8. Hold the wheel, let the car run out. Turn 9, same thing. In tight. You're setting up for 10, which is blind. Late apex, let the car run out. Eyes right. Second curve. Turn 12, nice and tight. All we're doing at 13 is setting up for 14. Come in, hold the wheel, don't move it. Car tracks left, comes back to the right. Apex. Heading to 16. A little bit of brake. Back on the gas. Hard brake. Turn 17, same thing. 1 turn of the wheel. Front stretch. Start finish line. Heading to turn 1, 2. Early apex. Turn the wheel and don't move it. 1 big arc. zone. Nice and tight. Late for 4.
Okay, so I apologize that for some reason that didn't play properly the whole
Pit
time,
road at
but,
PittRace.
Gotta get it.
We're going to give you an introductory lap.
Hopefully you could at least get some sense of the track. Like I said, I'll put the links up on the website, and if you send me an email, I'll send them to you in an email. To both videos. So trust me, one lap or even both laps that are on that video aren't going to be enough. If you're like me, you're going to want to watch it, a bunch of times, and and the advice of slowing it down and watching it at half speed after you've watched it a couple of times, is really, really good advice. So here's some kind of general comments, based on feedback I've gotten so far. It's a track that rewards smoothness and finesse. Yes, there's plenty of places you can use horsepower, but there are a bunch of connected corners. Most of the apexes and even the turn-ins, or maybe even especially the turn-ins, are late. So it requires patience. Apexes, and we'll talk about that when we go around the track, may vary a little bit depending on your car, but generally they're late. In many cases, they're long apexes. In other words, we're along the curb for a while, a zone of the apex. And we hope that the turn-in and apex cones are out there from the track. Craig and I are chiefs at this event, but we're expecting the track will have those out because as much as I've looked at the videos, I've not found very many good turn-in references. And that's doubly important because there's all kinds of elevation change, blind corners, and even corners that look similar the first few laps you go around the track. So plan to be challenged, plan to do your homework before you get there. Bruce told me that turns 8 and 10 look pretty similar, the first bunch of times around the track, and same for 7, 9, and 11. And having looked at the video, I can absolutely, and the track map for sure, I can absolutely get that. So this is going to be one of those cases where where you're getting that mental picture and knowing exactly where you are, not about where you are, but exactly where you are is going to be important. So here's a talk around the track. The diagrams, the drawing of the line and the track here comes from the PCA version of turn by turn for PittRace. I actually don't know who developed it. I know it was done 3+ years ago, and the lines shown here are not precisely what my notes here say. The notes here come from my study of the videos, from discussions with Bruce, and other input I've gotten about PittRace. So don't expect the diagram, the red line, if you will, to match precisely what are in the bullet points here. But with that said, turn 1, we're coming up coming uphill just past Pit In, and it's a fairly long section. It's a passing zone, but it's blind until we get to the brake zone. So we have to brake early. And we have to think of turns 1 and 2. If you have your track map, look at the map. Turns 1 and 2 are driven like one corner. The idea here is to turn in for 1 and hold the same steering arc all the way through turn 2. And the apex here is the beginning of that curb on the left for turn 1. So, and this is pretty quick from what I can tell, or let me say it that way, it's not slow. 3rd or 4th gear, I don't know which, probably 3rd gear for most people, but I don't know that for sure. Turn 2 just continues that arc. But here's the gotcha for turn 2. The blend line, as you saw in the video, is along track left, through turn 2 and beyond. And so it's kind of, odd / dangerous / whatever you want to call it, that the apex for turn 2 is the blend line, not inside the blend line. Imagine, those of you that have driven to Watkins Glen, imagine turn 11, the right-hander onto the front straight at Watkins Glen, when there's a car pitting in, and now we have to apex on the outside of the yellow line, right? Well, that's the situation here. The apex is the yellow blend line. But if there's a car coming out, you probably don't want to go right over to that yellow blend line. Probably want to leave a little bit of margin. So this is, a little bit of a, more than a little bit of, this is a situation to pay a lot of attention to. Yeah. And just to make life interesting, track out for 2 is blind until we get past the apex, or at least at the apex here. So the track's going, uphill or downhill. I don't even remember which here, but.
Bill, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Okay, just be really aware. Yeah, just be really, really aware of where that apex is on the blend line for 2. You can end up with 2 cars very close to each other, side by side. So both drivers, not only the driver who's apexing 2, the guy who's coming out onto a hot track, be very aware of what's going on right in the middle of that blend line. Because I've been on it where I've seen cars in front of me, 2 cars side by side with maybe a couple inches between them, because one of the 2 wasn't paying attention. So just a place to be really careful. Keep your eyes up when you come around one, and look to the left and see if somebody's coming out.
Yep, absolutely. So this is turn 1, turn 2 complex, followed by a pretty long straight section that's a passing zone on the left side.
So Bruce, is that an uphill or a downhill?
You're going uphill and you're blind.
Okay. And so when you talk about Mid-Ohio,
Yeah, just to make it, as Bill said.
okay. Bill mentioned that there's a lot of elevation change, and Mid-Ohio has a lot of elevation change. Do you agree that there's that much elevation change at this track?
More. Yeah, I would say more.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a lot of the elevation change is actually in the corner itself, as where Mid-Ohio, you apex, then you go down, you apex, then you go up. A lot of the change here is right in the corner itself at the apex. So a lot of these corners, there's 2 or 3 in particular that really are blind. You're really feeling your way to the apex because of the elevation in the corner.
Okay.
It's a Cayman track, Bill. It's the perfect track for a Cayman.
Oh, and I just got a GT3 RS. God damn.
I don't know whether to say congratulations or go F yourself.
You could do the second.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, if you watch Randy Post doing pit race, I think he's in a Camaro, but you'll get it's inside cameraing, and you'll get a feel for the elevation changes.
Okay, because I don't usually get elevation change from watching videos, so I'm glad to hear that there really is a lot.
Yeah, you won't, but you'll see the blind spots, and that's where it'll be most apparent to you.
Yep. Okay. All right. So carrying on, turns 3 and 4 are 2 very connected corners. We drive 3 to set up 4. That long front straight, we were just talking about. It is uphill, coming into 3. The braking zone is actually going uphill, but you can't see the corner in the braking zone because it's over a crest. The turn in is very late. There's 3-2-1 or 4-3-2-1 brake markers. You probably want to brake around 3, and the turn in is well after the last brake marker, and the cones are typically even set after the last flag, or after the last kind of marker that you would think would be the turn in. The apex for 3 needs to be late as well to help set up 4. And a good trick here is once we turn left into turn 3, count 1,001 relatively slowly, and then gently turn the car to the right. So Bruce says it's a couple of car lengths. You want to be straight before you turn the car into turn 4. And by the way, as we come out of turn 4, we're going down a very steep hill. So we're going to apex 4 mid to late curb and just hold the steering arc. It's going to take us right where we want to go. Down a hill, relatively short but fast section that's a passing zone, on the right side. Apparently this corner isn't as slow as it might look, but it's also very easy to be early because it sucks us in to want to turn in too soon.
Hey, Bill.
Yep.
What is the fourth bullet, the 1001? What do you mean by that?
And my shorthand of
Count.
1,000 to 1,001, that's what that means. Okay. I mean, to me, that's easier than saying it's a couple of car lengths. You'll see in the videos that they say, one of the drivers, says, count 1,001 and then turn right. So it's just a timing thing to get the entrance to 4 set up. Okay. So that's 3-4. Now, downhill steeply, entering turn 5 is actually the lowest point on the track. They call this Coyote Gulch down here for whatever reason. And this is the place where the track map that the Speed Secrets track map that's on the website is incorrect. It has 5 and 6 in the wrong places. Note where 5 and 6 are on the screen right now. And you'll see that what that map shows as 6 is really 5. And 6 is the second half of the complex, okay? Which actually makes more sense. But you will notice if you're looking at that track map or here, there is a little bit of a dog leg to the left approaching turn 5. You want to ignore that. As we come down the hill, we're kind of on the left side of the track, but we want to aim straight at the apex for 5 on a diagonal and use that straight diagonal to brake, just like many of us do into Big Bend at Lime Rock. So use that straight section because this is a slow corner. We're coming down at a pretty good pace. So this is going to be some serious braking. Now, there's an electric tower as you're coming down the hill, one of those great big, power poles off in the distance ahead of us. And it's on the right as we're coming down the hill. Bruce tells me if you turn in just before that's going to disappear from your right, that's a good reference point for turning in for turn 5. This is another late apex and hold it. Run along the curb for some distance, but like you already heard for turns 1 and 2, and you're going to hear at least 2 more times. The right technique here is 1 steering input, for this whole complex. We turn right, up against that curbing and just hold that arc, and it's going to take us, right around 6 and, right out to track out and right back to the middle of the track where we want to be because we were coming downhill steeply. I said the entrance to turn 5 is the lowest point on the track. Guess what? We got to go up. And the hill coming up out of after turn 6 is very steep. Bruce thinks it may be steeper than the toe at the Glen. So whatever it is, it's a serious hill that we're climbing up.
Momentum cars are going to have their hands full there. You really want to carry as much speed as you can, but because of all the braking you're doing to get into 5, momentum cars, it's a good place to pass.
Yep. So it is a passing zone after 6 on the on the right side, all the way up to 7. And this is a fairly long stretch from 6 up to 7 if you have your track map to look at. And by the way, I mean, anybody has questions or comments, just jump in. So now turns 7, 8, and 9 are the S's. And when I've studied the track, I was including 10 almost as part of the S's, but I think that's a semantic difference that makes no difference. But the point is, if you look at the map, there's a right, left complex here, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the diagrams I had to work with here had 7, 8, 9 on one map. So that's what I used. But so turn 7 is at the end of that long straightaway. So we're coming in fast.
And downhill.
And downhill, right. So it's a hard break, maybe marker 3, don't know for sure. We definitely want to trail into turn 7 because turn 7 is, well, it's not slow, it's not super fast, and we have to set up for 8. So trail into 7, apex mid curb, and then try to hold it. Follow the curb around to the end or even more, and then aim for the middle to later part of the curbing on 8. But notice here, I think the line between 8 and 9, the red line on the map, is correct. We want to be kind of mid-track exiting 8, but we really do want to get over closer to track left to set up for turn 9, because I believe turn 9 is a little bit faster. So this is you can clearly see here the trade-offs, right? You could book through turn 7 really fast and really screw up 8, or you could go through 8 really fast and screw up 9. And so this series of connected corners, is going to require some learning. I can tell you that everything I've seen suggests that the later you go in this complex 7, 8, 9, 10, the later you want the apex to be. You're going to see that the apex for turn 10 is at the end of or even past the curbing. So it's extremely late. Turn 9, the apex is almost the end of the curb as well, 1 or 2 stripes before the end of the curbing. So the apexes get later and later here as we go through this complex. And speaking of that, let's look at turn 10 for a second.
Her right hand or her left?
Turn 10 is the left-hander at the end of that complex. Now, just to make life interesting, the track designers or the topography make turn 10 blind. So we're approaching it at a reasonable pace, and it's totally blind. And Bruce said you have to feel your way to that later.
It's a Zoom call. Have you ever done a Zoom call when your name shows up?
Hey, Frankie, log in.
Hey, folks, if you're not on the call,
on your other computer.
somebody's who's.
Hey, Bill, you can mute everybody.
Yeah, I can.
Peter Miller.
Log in on that one.
Okay, let me just.
You just heard me.
Let me
Sounds like John Bolt.
All right. So we just solved that problem. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question or want to jump in. But what I was saying is, we were just talking about this series of connected corners, right, left. But turn 10 adds the wrinkle that it's blind as we get to it. So
it's blind all the way to the apex. I mean, really blind. You really do feel your way in there. You can't see anything until you get to the apex.
So obviously this is one to be very tentative with until we figure it out. And again, very, very late apex. You might touch the curb at the end, but that's how late it is. And then just to make life interesting, as soon as we'd like to track out to the right here, because this is reasonably quick. It's not a slow section, but we got to get the car back to the left fairly soon for for turn 11. And speaking of turn 11, we want to be track left. The line on the diagram here doesn't show it all the way track left, but I think that's wrong. Here we have two sets of curbs because the cut through, when they divide the track into two, comes back in here. And we basically want to run along both sets of curbs on the inside here. And this is a pretty quick corner, quicker than it may appear here. And so we can carry a little bit of pace. And there actually is a short passing zone on the right side here between turns 11 and 12. When you look at the video, you'll easily see the two sets of curbs and the cones that are in there to cone off the cut through. Now, turn 12, we want to be track left approaching it. There's a flagger in front of us when we approach it, and we turn in pretty much when we're lined up with that flagger or almost. The key thing here is get the eyes to the right and up the hill, because right after the apex here, the track goes steeply uphill. Turn 13 is up the hill, and just over past 13, it goes downhill into 14. But we're apexing mid curb or later here. This corner is a little sharper than it looks, number one. And number two, we don't want to track out quite as much as you might think, because we really want to track out right against the apex curbing of 13. And if we don't do that, then we're going to be out of shape, going over the hill from 13 to 14. So there's a bit of a compromise here exiting 12 to make sure that we don't end up too far track left, because we really want to think about the track out as being that apex of 13, right? And then just to make life interesting, we go downhill again. So turn 13, we want to stay left, setting up 14, which is another totally blind corner. And this time we're going downhill and we're picking up speed. And this is the beginning of the fastest section of the track. So we apex this on 14 mid curb or later. We let the car track out to the left. And when we do that, we're kind of lined up in front of us with a big water tower off in the distance that you see from other places on the track too. And this is another place where we're just going to hold the arc past the track out and bring the car back to the right side of the track to set up for turn 15, which comes up pretty quickly after this, especially since we're on gas at this point and accelerating and can be gaining quite a bit of momentum here. So one big arc, all the way past track out to set up for 15. So 15 is a pretty quick corner. We want to be approaching it from track right. And, once you've figured it out, in a lot of cars, you're going to have your foot on the floor through here. It's a long apex. You can use the curb here, drive right up on the curb if you want. A lot of people recommend using the curb. The middle of the curb or later, another longer apex. Once we do track out of 15, we're going to end up track right, obviously, but we're going to need to ease our way back left to set up for 16. However, this is a passing zone. It's the only passing zone on the track that, at least based on what we know right now, does not have mandatory pass on left or right, because this is one of those zones where if you're giving a pass signal just exiting 15, you'd want to give it on the left. But if you're giving a pass later, you'd want to give it on the right. Sort of like exiting turn 7 at Lightning, for example. So it is a fairly long section, but it's also very fast, from 15 through 16 and into 17.
Hey, Bill, what is WOT?
Oh, that's Bruce's favorite acronym. No, it's actually It's actually one that Peter Krause loves. It's wide open throttle, foot on the floor.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, so sorry about that. Yeah, again, fast section leading into a really fast section. Turn 16 is probably a little more than a kink. It is a corner. Maybe it's possible to go through here flat, but none of us should try to learn the track that way, right? So there's a small rise in the straight section just before turn 16. It's a good place to brush the brakes, or a little more, depending on how much horsepower you have, but no trail brakes here. You know, whatever braking you do it in a straight
You
line.
can
Get back on the gas and be on the gas going through the corner here. And here, use all the curb, right up on the curb, use all the curb, straighten it out. Second half of the curb, but you know, use it. And because you're carrying a lot of speed, you want to straighten it out as much as you can at this point. And that's, yeah, very fast corner. In fact, it's so fast that as we get past it and we end up track left, we better be thinking about braking for turn 17, which is coming up in a big hurry and is a slow corner. So I'm told the fun, fast section, but you know, obviously requires a lot of attention. So here's 17 and 18, another slow in, fast out, 2-corner complex. You know, we're going to brake, you know, as I said, after we exit 16 at the 2 marker, maybe before that. Again, we're going to hold the apex curb, you know, the middle of the curb to the end of the curb, the long apex. We're going to turn the steering wheel once. And in this corner, once we get sort of to the middle of the 180 here, a little bit past it, the track goes uphill fairly steeply. So we can feed in lots of gas, you know, and some cars foot on the floor gas at this point. One steering arc again, just like we heard in other corners, turn in once and get up on that apex, feed the gas in, keep the steering wheel right where it is and go. And it's going to spit us out in the middle of the track, you know, after 18, which is exactly where we want to be to set up for 19, which comes up right away after this. Okay, and just to finish, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Turn 19 it's really not a turn because it's foot on the floor through here, but we do have to respect it. So we want to get in close to the apex curb. Probably doesn't matter that we're right up on it. It could be a couple of feet off of it, but we are going to move track right after we exit turn 19. And this is a passing zone all the way from here up to turn 1. Okay. Now I didn't talk about, you know, in a lot of detail about pit in. I should have. Let me back up. You can't see it on these diagrams. You'll see it on the video. Just off this map that's here, where that arrow is at the end of the red line, just to the left of that is pit in. So pit in is inside of turn 19. So that looks to me like a very safe, very good thing to do. And so if we're pitting in here, I'm going to go back to the passing zones map in a second, and I'll talk more about that. But pit in is just after this red arrow, track left. Okay, so that's turn 19. So just a couple of quick things to summarize. Lots of late turn-ins and late apexes, then adjust. You know, brake early. Use long brake zones. Don't try to brake late. It's the last track you want to brake late at. And some reminders, we've talked about all these. It's very easy to be early and get off track. A lot of similar looking corners. You know, it's going to test our patience, I think, for some of us. But my biggest piece of advice is print out plenty of track maps. Take lots of notes when you get in at the end of your session. take the notes, write them on the track map before you do anything else other than take a drink of water while they're fresh in your mind, and then review those again before you go back out. That's going to be a huge help. That's what I'm going to do. And I encourage everybody to do that. For those drivers who've been here before, if you want to find somebody to follow, we're going to ask experienced drivers to put an X on the back of their car. So we know, that if you're following somebody, is that somebody that may know where they're going or not? Because, many of us haven't been there before. So following someone else who hasn't been there before may or may not be helpful. But anyway.
Where's the paddock on this, on the outside of the track, or?
Yeah, it's to the left of turn 19, turn 1, and turn 2. Yeah. I don't think let me go back to
Sort of like Ohio.
Similar.
I guess so. Yeah. So here's, the paddock is in this area, pink area. You can barely see it here, right? But it's in that pink area.
You're correct, Canute. I was going to ask a trivia question. We only go up to this track. We only go to one other track that has the pits on the outside of the track. And so that it is Mid-Ohio, and this is the second one.
Yep. So this is the passing zones that we talked about. I do want to point out that the yellow section here, and that's where if a car is pitting in, they're going to, I presume, and I haven't figured out this protocol, maybe Bruce, or somebody else does. Yeah, if you're pitting in coming out of 17, 18, I assume you're going to go track left.
Yeah.
And give the pit in signal.
Stay track left.
Yeah, you're going to stay track left so cars can pass on the right in that section if a car has their fist out the window heading into the pits. Hence the yellow section on this map, which is not a passing zone except for someone who's entering the pits. Okay. But you can see if you look carefully at this map, how, pit in is there just after 18, and you can't see, you can sort of see that the entrance to the track, pit out, is almost a turn 2, runs alongside there. Okay, all right. So, questions, comments?
The one area that's opposite pit lane, is that a passing zone too? It shows green.
Yeah, the pit lane section is a passing.
No, above that.
Oh, yes, that's the section from turn 15 through 16, the really fast section in the back. It's absolutely a passing zone. It's not marked mandatory sides though,
Okay.
because you can pass, depending on where you are there, you're going to pass either left or right. All the others, it makes no sense to pass on any side but the one that we've marked here.
Are these the passing zones for all run groups?
Well, Craig and I haven't talked about it, but I imagine we'll do expanded passing in the upper groups. Whether we do that, from the get-go or whatnot, we'll have to decide. But
yeah, this is one of these tracks, and we tell this all the time to people in the extended passing groups. And this track has a lot of these areas. Just because you can pass everywhere, it doesn't make sense to attempt to pass anywhere. So we'll talk about it. We'll see and let the drivers know how we're going to approach it.
Yeah. So I'm with Craig. I mean, having studied the videos and tried to figure out the track, there aren't very many places besides this that look like they'd be a good place for me to give a signal or take a signal. It's just very twisty. I mean, the S's, for example, be just like trying to pass in the S's at Watkins Glen, just not quite as fast. Doesn't make any sense at all, right? So, so we'll look at that, but there aren't, let's put it this way, even if we allowed passing anywhere, there aren't going to be very many other places where anyone should take a pass, because it's going to screw up both drivers.
So, Bill, I've run extended passing here. I've run at this track with the extended passing.
Yeah.
At least they tell you are under no circumstances to pass is between 1 and 2 because of that apex.
Oh,
The-
yeah, yeah.
The apex on the blend line. And 10, because 10 you can't see the apex. Anywhere else on this track, if you're careful enough, I wouldn't start this event off that way. But if you moved into that, maybe the second day or late the first day, I think this group could handle it. And the upper run groups anyway, I think they can handle it.
Yeah, well,
My 2 cents. My 2
Okay.
cents.
all right. Yeah, well, it's one of those things we'll try to get smarter about and play by ear, but we're going to err on the side of caution, obviously, since there's going to be so many of us
Absolutely.
there that, is there anyone else on tonight besides Bruce who's driven Pit Race? I should have asked that earlier.
Chuck Price, I think.
Yeah, Chuck has done it, and also I think Ken Ernsting.
Where's Ken?
Yeah, I haven't seen Ken on tonight, but
No.
I did see Chuck. So Chuck, anything you want to add? Unless he dropped off. I'm just looking to see if he's on. I don't think he's still on. Yeah, I should have asked him to jump in sooner. But okay, so other questions, comments, ideas?
Bill, when will these slides be available to access?
I'll have them, online either, later tonight or in the morning, Bob. So,
Okay, all right.
so, but safe thing is send me an email and I'll send you links to various things. Okay.
And where would you find your email address?
Gilbert4@rcn.com. I'll put it in the chat.
Bill, we request that you stay up until this is done, if that's okay. Bill, I have to thank, you always put so much work into everything. This is a lot of prep work just to have us here, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Amen.
You're
to
welcome.
that.
Just
Thanks, Bill.
And just as a note that like we did at Summit Point last August, the first half hour will be a yellow, basically no passing for the solo drivers for the first half hour of Monday.
That's a great idea. Great
So
idea.
what we could do is, like, Bruce, you're going to have an X on the back of your car. Chuck Price. Anyone else who had been there, we're going to kind of try to identify them in the meeting and see if we could, do a kind of a modified lead follow, just kind of get a lay of the land type of thing. But just, get out there, do 50 to 70% speed, look around, learn your marks, learn where the flag stations are, and just to get familiar with the track before you have to go out and worry about passing or anything. So no passing first half hour. All solo drivers are allowed to go out.